I'm Michael Maines, director of Blue Spiral One. We wanted to share with you a special event we were privileged to experience with artist Julian Davis. Incorporating previous work with new works for this show, a talented cast of actors came together before a live audience to bring some of his fabulous characters of American Ghosts to life. Humorous and compelling, the evening echoed the spirit of one of our current exhibitions entitled Ambidextrous, which celebrated different artists working in different mediums as disciplinary artists. It is meant to challenge the viewer's notion of what the term traditionally means. As both a writer and painter, Julian more than embodies the spirit of that word as much as any artist I know. We hope you enjoy.
Oh, do you remember sweet Betsy from Pike, who crossed the wide prairie with her lover Ike?
Thank you all so much for being here. A few words about this new project before I introduce tonight's performers. 15 years ago, I started telling stories in paint based on American folk song, lost histories and legends, even dreams during COVID. American Ghosts is really a novel in paint. Tonight's performance is rather unique, the idea of my writing something after rather than before the images are made. The pictures inspire the words. But I actually have a family precedent for what you're about to see. My great-great-grandfather, John Lamb, was a Victorian painter, and he and his father painted a panorama, a journey from London to Hong Kong, about 2 feet high and 150 feet long. It was recently purchased by the Lucas Museum of Narrative Painting in Los Angeles. I found out just today, actually, that not only did the father and son paint an epic journey, but they also wrote a little book of stories to go along with it. American Ghosts brings together my paintings of the South and the West. It travels back through the thousands of places I have painted as an American landscape painter to a way of creating that I left behind in art school, which is painting from imagination. It would be tiring and difficult to transport a buffalo and a kangaroo, a pig and a chicken, children and the rest of the cast to a remote canyon and paint them all from life. Better to just use one's imagination. This is the story of 3 ghosts, 3 women from 3 extraordinary moments in American history, and of their imagined travels together. My son is along for the ride, among an ever-growing cast of characters. These paintings are excerpts from a novel. They also mark the beginning of an allegory. The great contemporary historian of the West, Richard White, has said that we are living in a second Gilded Age, and I rather agree. The Wizard of Oz was an allegory of the Gilded Age, and particularly the populist movement. The Tin Man representing industry, the Scarecrow, America's farmers, the Yellow Brick Road, the Gold Standard, etc. And I am taking something of the vintage charm of children's literature to paint this story of America's history for my son. I was born in a post-colonial country. I grew up on Monty Python and a healthy disrespect for empire, and I think my response to jingoism, to extremism, to untruths and unnecessary drama is rather typical of my generation. I want to tell my son and his generation the story of his roots, the story of westward expansion, in a way that skirts nothing, but also offers him some direction, some hope in mankind. A gift of being a parent is that you can't give up, you can't be a misanthrope, and you have to find some hope. With American Ghosts, I aimed for a tricky kind of satire that entertains even as it does not shy away from reality. And I wanted to find hope in people. Let's meet some of them. Rebecca Morris will play Belle. Belle is the Old South personified. My ballad paintings were all about the culture of honour that came to the South from the Scottish borders, and Belle typifies that fierce and individualistic approach to life. She comes storming out of the Civil War, pursuing a terrified young man who has failed to notice her interest in him. Along the way, she will become an artist, sketching her new pet hawk. I imagine her as a cross between Scarlett O'Hara and Captain Ahab. Mary Catherine O'Donnell is Betsy, This whole story began with the old song Sweet Betsy from Pike. Betsy and her fiancé Ike are off to California with the gold rush of 1849. In the song, there's mention of a tall Shanghai rooster. So I decided to make Betsy part of the chicken bubble of that same year, when speculators lost fortunes investing in ornamental chickens. Josephine Thomas will play Nancy. Nancy represents the New Deal. She's the WPA. She's the spirit of Woody Guthrie. She intends to fix everything for everyone. A circus strongwoman from the 1930s, she has rescued a boxing kangaroo from certain failure in the ring, and they are heading, like every other Okie, towards California. There is a fourth female character in every painting around us, Mother Nature. All three ghosts cross the landscape, but they are disconnected from it. Betsy and Ike want the gold it offers. Belle charges across it. Nancy wants to make it work for everyone. They will cross the country, slowly noticing their companion more and more, Mother Nature, until they reach California, the looking back place, as Betsy might say.
Oh, do you remember sweet Betsy from Pike, who crossed the wide prairie with her love?
October 20th, 1849. They say this hen fever can't last. I say wrong. Our Shanghai rooster is already worth 10 times what we paid for him. My money is on the bird. I cast some faith in my chicken plan, but a whole lot more in getting to California. We'll see who prevails. Chickens or gold, we plan to be rich. My fiancé has built the sweetest little wagon for me to pull. This way, he explained, with no oxen or horses, we don't have to wait on the grass season to get us across the plains. And this suits me just fine. I told Ike I want to cross this country independent, not stuck in some line of wagons chewing on other people's dust. With me toting everything, he said, he'll be free to stroll on ahead and find a way. We're a team that way. He took out his little map and showed me the places with his finger. Seeing as how we're squirting around all the wagon traffic, we could just take our time, see the sights. On the leaving day, I put our clothes and victuals in the rooster's fancy Chinese bed in the wagon. I hung Ike's sign on the back for people to know he's a dentist, tooth jumping or nippers. He gives folks a choice. Cuts hair too, and that's how we'll survive. Then I readied the pig with the news he'll be walking to California, and he didn't seem to have no say in the matter. And it was time to be on our way. The dog was pleased to be going someplace new, and the cows seemed fine with staying.
September 10th, 1863. Mother, how dare you say I am leaving Georgia to pursue a man? If you have in mind the person I think, I do not even know his name, nor do I care to know it or him. You have entirely mistaken the few observations I made about a stranger's rudeness, which were made to you in confidence, I might add, and certainly not meant for father's ear. No doubt your gossip by now has infected all LaGrange. That alone is reason enough for me to continue with my plans to leave, but I am certainly not going because I was slighted, as you insist on putting it, nor running off to chase a man like some silly chit. I might add that it's hardly likely I could ever catch up to, let alone find, any person aimed for California with a 9.5-day start on me. Let me give you my true reasons for leaving Georgia, for quitting the Confederacy, and for, yes, rejecting the South to embrace the West. They are as follows. Firstly, I do not have enough mates. Secondly, the climate here is hateful. Fetid, fly-blown, insufferable. Thirdly, we are going to lose the war. I don't care what Father or Colonel Boykin says. Fourthly, I have never spoken this before, doing so only now under the tyranny of your cruel misapprehensions, but the very idea of a women's militia is ridiculous. It mocks everything our young men are fighting to protect, and our girlish mimicry only cheapens their courage. Yes, I will do anything to defend the glorious South, but no, I will not march back and forth with that rifle one day longer. You know how much I love guns and bright knives, but that rifle oil has quite ruined my dress. I will take dear raw head and bloody bones to protect me and hunt out any rude type we might need to discover. Also Cassandra, despite her constant eye-rolling, to tend to my afflictions. As I write, she is loading up my sweet toy buggy with my favorite weapons. I am not angry, just disappointed, Mother. Rest assured, though, I will write each day. When I reach my destination, you may reply. This might all be bearable if I had more maids, but I doubt it. Your frail child, Belle. July 5th, 1935. The Australian lost again. First round. I don't think he laid one punch. It bothers me to see him try so hard each time thinking he has a chance. If I see it again, well, I don't know what all I'll do. Nancy, they tell me, stop trying to save everyone. I'm not. Nobody can save anybody. But if it happens again, I'm taking that poor Rube out of the ring myself. Pick him up, tail and all, and carry him out of here. He won't like it. He'll put up a fight, but hey, I've seen him fight. He's a proud rodent, or whatever he is, and that's why he got into the sweet science, I guess. But he don't fool me. He's no fighter. Each town the circus rolls into, he's looking for where the hooch is at. He drinks because he hates himself. He hates himself because he don't fit in. And he don't fit in because he's a kangaroo. It's as simple as that. We need to quit this dust and head for California like everyone else.
I told Ike, if we're not gathering orphans for California, then I don't know what we're doing. First, we picked up that boy in the woods, and today it was a little Alabama child. She saw us coming down the road, and she ran out like a rabbit to ask where we were going. I said California, and she said that sounded a lot better than Alabama, and could she come along? Ike stood there, blinking. He needs time to digest novelty. So I turned to our first foundling for his opinion, and the boy stroked his chin like there could be a beard there or something, and then said that would be fine with him. And the next thing you know, the girl was climbing in beside Shanghai.
Mother, Lindy Lou has proven a good tracker with a fine nose. I am daily glad that person lost his boot in his haste to so rudely depart our final conversation. Each morning I bring out the boot and Lindy considers it, then she is off. Today she made a great discovery, and I'm sorry I misjudged her Samaritan intentions. How she hurried back, so proud with her trophy. What have we here? I cried, thinking she had brought me an interesting log, only to see it was in fact an interesting log most artfully carved into the form of a sleeping hawk. Then, falling back at the horror, the stupid brute had done nothing less than seize an innocent falcon. Ever attentive to my fainting spells, dear Rawhead came running. As he pried the noble aeronaut from Lindy's jaws, I saw her tail was wagging, and only then understood. Dear dog that she is, Lindy had found an invalid for us to tend. Water, I called out. Oh, no, not for me, you fools, for the bird. Well, we're on our way, me and the rodent. At first he was mad, but then he got to hopping along, finding what little there is to sniff out in all this dust. That night we reached a jungle camp beside the railroad tracks. I told the hobos we had run off from the circus, and one wiseacre said he would have never guessed. We found a spot of our own to rest, and the Australian was quiet at first, but then he got to jumping around the place, pestering anyone he could for a drink or a smoke. I thought it best to pay for the supper they gave us with some kind of show. We picked an old-fashioned song, and the music started up. I led. Turns out my pal can dance better than he can fight.
Today the weather was fine, although the land seemed to be on fire for some reason. Ike stopped and raised his hand to one of his very considerable ears. I listened too, and sure enough, there was a dog baying and shouts coming at us through the smoke. Ahead of all this commotion strode a very elegant lady, tall as a tree, and not minding the flames at all. She shook my hand with quite a grip. Her name is Vale. She said she was just out strolling to take the air, but had we happened to see, by chance, a fine, handsome wretch of a man with glorious red hair and maybe one boot. I told her no, because we hadn't. What's in the wagon? She smiled with these pretty little yellow teeth. But in a suspicious way, like maybe she thought there was a fine, handsome wretch of a man in there. Priceless chicken, I told her. Shanghai. And then she got all excited and hurried to show me the deadest bird I've ever seen. Propped up with pistols in her buggy.
Will this war never end? I certainly hope not. How it has entertained and crowded our days with busyness. I know you have your doubts about the slaughter, Mother, but do you not recall how you would sigh and wish for even the smallest tidbit of news? Now you have letters daily. Yes, some admittedly quite distressing, but tidings nonetheless. Today we crossed a battlefield, only to discover new friends, pioneers also, and likewise bound for the West. Betsy is a tiny mountain thing. Her face is round, and the end of her nose is round, and her eyes are round at the wonder of the world. She is very proud of her chicken. Not seeking to brag, but rather to show only my kindred admiration for the feathered tribe, I introduced her to Hawkie. He was tired and resting in his carriage, but I could see at once the impression he made. This is Sir Hawkie Hawk, I told her, with a sharp look at my posse to stop even a smirk. Can you believe they have actually suggested burying Hawkie, Mother? And to my frustration, they have taken to calling my angel the Lost Cause. Now my toy circus wagon is gone, and everything else I owned, my dumbbells, my chains, my steel bars, and nails for bending. All we managed to save from the dust storm was that Australian's lousy boxing gloves, and only those because he was wrestling to get them on. He wants to fight a mile-high wall of dust, take on a black roller. I should have let him. Your kangaroo doesn't lack for courage, I'll grant you that. But I never look at him and say, there goes a thinker. Show him anything new and he's hurrying to get whipped. I just learned he isn't a rodent after all, by the way. Turns out he's a marsupial. Which makes perfect sense to me. He doesn't look like anything from this planet. We parted ways with our new friends after a delightful picnic. The children played while I regaled the pioneers with tales of my favorite graveyards. Rawhead and Bloody Bones wasted their time fussing over that supposedly priceless chicken. We reached Uncle's plantation 2 days later. I was disappointed to find his horses still run from me, just as they did when I was a child. Why does this happen, Mother? I love horses. How much I want to seize their luxuriant manes or trace a fingernail around just one heroic nostril. Uncle was well, and he and Aunt Clara in good spirits, as nearly all the children had survived a recent bout of the cholera.
How many cats make an audience? I would say 3 is the bare minimum. And they're a tough crowd, going from curious to not faster than you can say juggling kangaroos. Those were my thoughts anyway until I looked up and saw the circle had grown. What we had watching us now was pioneered ghosts. I stopped our practicing, and the Australian landed nimble enough to finally impress the cats. The little woman asked what kind of giant mouse he was, and I told her he was a marsupial of the boxing disposition. Her feller was more interested in my outfit, or rather everything outside it. But who could blame the poor dog? Where he came from, I must have looked like a regular demi-toss. They were headed to California to get rich quick on gold or chickens. And I just nodded, keeping any oaky thoughts on speculation to myself. Like every ghost you meet, they didn't know they were dead. And I kept quiet about that too. No point jolting them with that news either.
Hawkie has enjoyed his stay. Cassie fastened him to a magnolia branch near the house. Each evening as we sat on the porch, he surveyed us contentedly. Aunt Clara suffers for my plight and understands my intentions a great deal better than her own sister, it seems to me. Some men are blind, she whispered at dinner, blind to their best interests. Belle, you must find your wayward beau and secure his loyalty even as you secured your pet owl to a tree. How right she is, except that Hawkie is not an owl, of course. Oh, beauty is a curse, Mother. You gave me my looks and father my great height, but there are times I gaze into my mirror and wish I could exchange my sweet and delicate features for something fiercer.
More ghosts! Oklahoma is full of them. I was trying to tell Betsy how dust storms and toy wagons don't mix when we heard a commotion and saw some Civil War frights waving, grinning our way. To my mind, they're the kind of ghosts this country doesn't need. But turns out they knew Ike and Betsy as pals already. I calmed the Supial down and we all visited for a while, everyone shaking hands and exchanging news as another dust storm bore down on us. Their group was led by a mad woman who asked me right away if I had seen a white male on my travels. She gave a description all the same, twitching and snarling, waving a stuffed bird in the air. Then the dust arrived and we were hurrying for shelter, all except her, who ran off into the blackness shouting something about more flying lessons.
One day, we came upon a buffalo. He was the very last buffalo, turns out. And he was very lost. Very lonely, too. I rubbed his nose. And Nancy tried to guess how much he weighed. She's always showing off. Picking up big old logs and rocks. Just trying to impress Ike, I guess. I told her to leave that bison alone. The poor creature kept close to our fire all night. And in the morning, when we looked behind us, he was following right along. Well, there's a lot of curious animals in this country, to be sure, but I ain't seen any yet that compare to that marsupial. The way he looks at you sometimes. He's a hungry one, too. I give him treats when Nancy isn't looking.
Across the wide prairie with her lover Ike, with 2 yoke of oxen, an old yellow dog, a tall Shanghai rooster, and 1 spotted hog, singing dang foldy dido, singing dang foldy day.
To see the characters come to life is fantastic, actually. I mean, it reminds me of when I was at school studying printmaking, and you would make a print and you had no idea until you peeled the paper back what it was going to look like. You'd have this reverse of the image, and there's something about that, of this collaboration with the writers, that their recreation just adds so much more. It makes me feel I've written something much better than I thought I had. I think the actors, with what they brought to the performance, yes, they've elaborated on the characters, and I've seen ways that they chose to interact. They asked me a lot of questions about the motivation and the background of the characters, which was very helpful to me. And also hearing it, rather like seeing a book finally in print too, you also get this sudden clarification of how to improve on and tweak the story as it goes along. I actually enjoy that part of ceding control. When I handed the scripts to the actresses, the director told me, that your part is done now. You go away and we don't need your help anymore. And I just love the freshness and the elaboration they've brought to the characters.